Hey everyone, Christy from Happy and Healthy TV coming from you guys live from my bed tonight at 2:30 in the morning, as usual when I'm typically filming these videos. Excuse me. Today we're going to be filming 100 Days of a Girl with Lyme documentary, day 14. And today's topic is actually celebration. It's going to probably sound weird for a Lyme video, but there's a reason for me doing that. So I want to tell you guys a little story. It's a true story, obviously. And I think it's very inspirational. And hopefully this helps other people out that are struggling with Lyme. I don't know what's going on with tonight, but I've gotten a lot of calls and feedback from other Lymies, all of us insomniacs that are up all night. And kind of been just talking about, hey, this is kind of a little bit of something that happened to me. So, so December 17th, which is actually yesterday now, was actually my sister's birthday, so happy birthday to my wonderful sister. But it also marks a very special day for me. Back in, most of you guys know my Lyme story, but I was diagnosed with Lyme carditis in 2011, lost my daughter 6 months later to congenital Lyme, and then kind of just went back to work, did what I had to do, and I think things remained dormant for me for a while. And in 2013, it's my cat's tail there, I was diagnosed with Lyme meningitis. That threw me on my ass. And for me being the strong person I am, strong-minded, strong-willed, and physically strong, that was really difficult to deal with. So I am very, very thankful. I had a lot of people come out and help me, particularly in the beginning of my illness. I had dropped down to 70 pounds at one point. I was so skinny, could just like not eat anything without getting sick. So why am I telling you guys this? Well, we wound up having a big fundraiser back in 2015. I had relapsed again after coming back from a conference, a really great nutrition conference in California, where I was hanging out with really cool people like Jordan Rubin. Oprah's partner Stedman was actually there doing some stuff for this conference. So and I met my dear friends Christy and Laura while I was down there. We're still buds today, even though we live in different parts of the country, so it's pretty neat. So we raised about $25,000. God bless all of these people that came in and helped me. Sorry guys about that. My cat has decided to take a trek over here. She usually does when I'm doing these videos. I think Precious wants to be like on TV. Either that or she just wants attention. Anyhow, so we had all these people raise money for us, for me to be treated. Most of you guys know this, and if you don't, let me fill you in on something with Lyme disease. Treatment for Lyme is not covered. All right, so let me just put that out there. Somebody's going to tell you have a disease that's potentially like life-threatening, and then they're going to tell you in the same breath, yeah, sorry, we're not covering any of your meds or any experimental treatment or basically anything that you want to do to help treat yourself. You're on your own. Go do your thing. That to me blew my mind. You know, even though I'm a holistic practitioner who, mind you, I run a cash practice, so I don't take insurance because I don't care for the way insurance companies dictate to us practitioners. Listen, you can only see your patient for 15 minutes a month. Are you kidding me? I don't care how good you are at being a practitioner, but that is not a long enough period of time to get to know your patient, be able to adequately treat the patient, and then eradicate said problem that person came in with, which is what my job has always been. I always kind of joked around about my job. When we would get to have a patient graduate our program, so to speak, that means I got somebody better. You know what? I'm not keeping you on drugs or meds forever or anything like that. My goal is to, treat a patient, get them well, and then let them graduate and let the next patient that needs my help come in. Not the deal with Lyme, unfortunately, and you guys will find that if you're privy to Lyme or if you're just happening to pick this up. So let me go back to what I was saying. $25,000 was raised for me to go to a place called Invita/Mayo Clinic. It's Invita Clinic, which I'll post pictures of me standing in front of the door because, between the help of colleagues, friends, family, my practitioner friends, there's so many people, God bless, that reached out to help me out so I would be able to get out there. So I get to Arizona, where the Invita Clinic is, which specializes in Lyme. It's one of the premier clinics in the country for Lyme disease. Now, mind you, I live in New York, where it's like the plethora of all different great practitioners, and I've had some amazing doctors here, including Dr. David Gentile, Dr. Tia Trevisano. We'll shout out Dr. Michael Gurvich as well. And then, my practitioner buds that I work with in my practice at LIAM. We did everything that we possibly could throughout all those practitioners, and it got to a point where it was like, all right, Christy still needs help, and I was still doing really poorly. So, God bless my little brother and his beautiful wife. They wound up, also helping to raise money. So, got sent out to this clinic in Arizona a week before Christmas, back in 2015. So, this is actually a crazy story. I should probably tell the whole thing. I'm wheelchair bound at this point, having seizures, having SVT runs, constantly tachycardic. I was just major health issues at that time. I weighed about 90 pounds soaking wet, so you could tell there was something wrong with me. My normal weight's about 120 with like solid muscle mass. So anyhow, get out to go fly out to Arizona. I wound up having a layover on the way there. I don't remember. I think I stopped in Texas. I forgot where I was. I've been all over the country. Sometimes I get my trips confused. But we stopped in Texas and then got on a second plane. And I was fine. I like to fly. But what wound up happening, maybe about, I want to say 2.5, maybe 3 hours into that flight, I couldn't breathe very well. And I started getting really tachycardic. So I'm sitting there checking my pulse. And I'm like, shit, my heart rate is like 157. Then it jumped up to somewhere up in the 180s. And my face just started turning red. You get on a plane and you're traveling by yourself, and every now and again you'll say hello to your seatmate, and maybe you'll have a conversation with them. I'm pretty talkative, as you guys know, so I usually make friends with whoever I'm sitting next to, at least for a couple of minutes. In this particular case, there's a gentleman sitting in the seat next to me. He was doing work. I was reading something, so we just kind of said hello and didn't say anything. So as my heart rate's climbing up, this is happening. My face is evidently turning red. I couldn't see my face, so I didn't know this was happening. And the gentleman turned around and said to me, "Mister, you all right?" And listen, no, actually, I'm on my way to an appointment at a very prestigious clinic in Phoenix, or just outside of Phoenix. It was in Scottsdale. I have tachycardia. My heart's beating too fast. So he looked at me and he was like, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I'm like, can you grab my carry-on bag from up above? I had my a beta blocker in there, and I had magnesium. So I took an extra beta blocker. I took magnesium. Heart rate's still going crazy. So now I'm thinking maybe it's an altitude issue. Maybe it's a cabin pressure issue. So I call the flight attendant over. A very nice young lady comes up, and I'm like, can you just let me know when the plane's going to land? Was it supposed to land because I'm looking at the time. I'm like, the plane should have landed like an hour ago. What's going on here? She's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am. We caught a bad tailwind. And, it's going to take an additional hour for the plane to get to where it has to go. Are you okay? Your face is red." I said to her, "No, I'm fine. I'm just hot." I knew if I would have told this woman that I was having a heart issue, they would have had to ground the plane. And there was no way in hell I was not making it to this appointment after everyone had done so much to help me to get to that appointment. Not only funding it, but helping to plan this trip out and making sure that I was okay when I was there. And again, I'm traveling alone, really not well at all. So, flight attendant tells me, "It's going to be another hour." All right, so I figured to myself, let me think of what my mother always taught me. Children always get you through things. My mom always taught me that. If you're sad, look at a child and, look at the world through their eyes. So, I'm thinking about my son. I'm thinking about my late daughter who passed away. And I'm just like praying. I'm like, please just let me get there. Please let me just get on the ground and be okay. And hopefully my heart rate will kind of stabilize after the plane lands. So now it's about 15 minutes later, after I'm sitting here having these constant, trying to think positive as much as I can stuff. And the gentleman, again, sitting next to me, he's like, "Miss," he's like, "Are you sure? Okay, now I really can't breathe." So I'm like, "No, I'm not." At this point, I'm like, they're going to land in Phoenix if I say something. He calls the flight attendant over, and he's like, "Oh, this young lady's having trouble breathing." As soon as that happened, they got in touch with EMS in Phoenix International Airport. And, emergency landing. So they landed the plane on the tarmac. They didn't even take that little, what is that thing called? I don't know, that tunnel that you walk through. I can't think of the name of it when you're going to get on a plane. They did not even wind up doing that. The flight attendant turns around and announces, "Listen, we have a medical emergency on the plane. Everybody please stay in your seats. We have to get this passenger off." So this, again, gentleman I know from the hole in the wall, grabs my bags for me, picks me up out of my chair, and, with another flight attendant and the first officer of the plane helped me get off. EMS is on the plane now. I don't know what was going on with the people on the plane, but like people were just trying to get off, still anyway. So this gentleman sitting next to me and another gentleman, basically I said 90 pounds soaking wet I am, picked me up, got me off the plane. They had the regular stairs on the plane where they just open it up at an emergency landing. Got me off. When I tell you, there was like, I don't know why the hell they did this. It's actually kind of funny now that I think of it. It was like 6 fire trucks. I don't know why the hell they called a fire truck for somebody who was having SVT runs, who couldn't breathe, but whatever. So those were there. But maybe they thought the plane was on fire or something. And then, quite a few paramedics and EMS personnel get off the plane. And I turn around. This is like around, I want to say my plane landed around 2 o'clock in the morning, New York time. So I think it was like midnight Arizona time, because I think they're about 2 hours behind us here. And my mother is now frantically, trying to figure out where the hell I am, because my plane was supposed to have landed an hour ago. She cannot get a hold of me. I had car service waiting outside in front of the airport for me that I had already had scheduled and taken care of. So my thought wasn't even like, crap, I have tachycardia. My thought was like, I have to get to my hotel so I can go to this appointment in the next morning. So had a really nice paramedic. She's sitting there. My heart rate was up to 215. So, they wanted to take me to the hospital. And I'm like, listen, please, can you do me a big favor? I'm a practitioner. I'm not being disrespectful to what you're saying or trying to discredit your medical opinion. However, it's more important for me to make it to this appointment than anything. So, perhaps if I take another beta blocker and take more magnesium, and now that I'm not, dealing with altitude issues, maybe my heart rate will calm down. I'm like, she turns around, she looks at me like, you really, again, to her with a couple of gentlemen, like, saying, like, you really need to go. I just refused. I'm like, listen, then refused care at that point. I've dealt with this in the past before, and I'm pretty sure it had to do with, like, altitude issues on the plane. So, and cabin pressure stuff. She was like, I'll give you 20 minutes. If your heart rate's not down to an acceptable rate, then, I think that you really should go to the hospital. Fine. We made a deal. Shook on that. That was cool. Waited about 20 minutes, and lo and behold, my heart rate went down to like 132. Good enough. I'll take it. So, God bless that man that was for that car service that I had, because he actually waited for me, which was really kind of him too. So, I mean, I'm so blessed. People like always help me when I need help. I'm very thankful for that. Which is why I think I'm always trying to help other people as well. It's kind of a pay it forward thing. But yeah, so this gentleman wound up taking me to my hotel. God bless, it was a cute little man, a little elderly man, when I checked into this really nice hotel. Mayo Clinic is across the street, and then Invita Clinic was across the street from that. So I was literally right across the street from the hospital, should I have needed it. So my thought process was like, I'll be fine. But this little gentleman that was working at the hotel, when he checked me, and he's like, oh my God, you need to call your family. They've been called, your family and friends had been calling, for the past 2-3 hours. Where is she? Why is she not there? This ordeal took a long time. So now it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, New York time. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, Arizona time. And he's like, you really need to call your mother and your family. They're like really freaking out. So I made contact with my mom, let her know that I had landed. She's a poor woman. I felt so bad for a mom to have to go through to worry about their daughter like that. And, yeah, that was pretty much that. So, I settled in, did what I had to do. That very nice elderly gentleman who was, at the front desk of the hotel comes out with a wheelchair. I mean, God, they were just so helpful. I can't tell you in enough ways how helpful the staff was at this particular hotel. It was a Hilton. I usually stay at Hilton. So, they were pretty good. Anyhow, gentleman helps me get in my room. I use medical marijuana. I'm not shy to admit this anymore. I used to be in the closet about it. Now I don't care. The stigma's kind of been taken away. So I went outside and used some of that. I'm like, I'm good, and my heart rate was back down to pretty much normal. Went to bed, got up, went to the clinic the next day. What a beautiful clinic. There was a girl, Ashley, that was working at the front desk. There was a nurse. She was a sweetheart. They had looked over my medical records prior to me coming in. So I went and had a 3.5 hour long consult with a Dr. Benjamin Warren, who is amazing. I have to say, I highly recommend this gentleman. Very, very intelligent, very privy to Lyme disease. So we conference called my family in on this call because, again, I'm there by myself. And I'm still having SVT runs and other things going on. That man turned around and said to me after 3.5 hours of going over my medical records, and with me having the background in nutrition, functional neuro, and functional medicine that I do have, I already knew what I was dealing with, but it was like I needed to hear it from somebody else and get the appropriate treatment. So what I was told at that point in time was my heart condition was so severe. I had significant brain damage, not only from Lyme meningitis, but having continuous seizures. And when I say continuous seizures, I'm talking like I was having like three to five seizures a day, every day. Having these tremors that were ridiculous. Like my hands now, if you look at them, shake a little bit. They're not too bad, but this is my hands on meds and on supplements. Back then it was like this, you know, or my whole body would shake like that. So I had some of that stuff still going on. And he's like, look, I don't think that you, you know, we'd like to treat you. We'll do whatever we can to help you out. But I think you can only, if you're not treated within the next 6 months, you know, this is diagnosed now as terminal, basically. I looked at this doctor and I'm like, look, I respect what you're saying, but no, I'm not having that. At the time, this was 3 years ago, my son was 7. It's like, that's absolutely unacceptable. What are we doing to fix this? So then here comes the next blow. Well, you know, we can treat this, you know, with all different experimental treatment, which is, you know, a lot of things, you know, a lot of the times that's what you're going to hear with Lyme, because they're testing things out now. It's relatively new in terms of being treated. We need about $100,000 for treatment. I don't know about you guys, but I'm very fortunate. I graduated from one of the top educational institutes in the country. I've been trained by some of the most amazing people under the sun. Again, I've written several books. So I know a lot of great practitioners. And I respect the fact that, you know, some things aren't covered by insurance. But that meant at that point we'd have to come up with an additional, from what we had, like $75,000 for me to be treated. It just wasn't feasible. You know, I got to a point where I'm like, you know what, I can't continuously ask people for donations. This is crazy. There's got to be a less expensive way to do this. So I had asked this doctor, Warren, well, what will we do treatment-wise? At that point, I don't know if anybody else with Lyme has heard about this, so if you have, you know, comment on it, because I'd be interested to know. They were doing chemo for Lyme at that point in time, ozone, which I've done before, chelation therapy, which if you're not familiar with that, it's expelling toxins out of the body. Trying to think. That was a while back, guys, so forgive me. It was quite a few different treatments we did. So I remember my cousin had just done my Supergirl tattoo, like, right before we left. So, you know, I for some reason, I'm always, like, getting my tattoos redone, like, right before I have to get on a plane. It winds up getting, like, messed up because it's, like, squishing up against things. So, they did chelation, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, wow, I just had a tattoo done. Like, that's going to pull all the ink out of my arm. This is what I'm worried about, of course, being, you know, still this vain person that cares about what I look like. I'm sitting in an infusion room with about 5 or 6 different ladies. I'm the only person that was there by myself. That was one thing I have to say. I have some balls, you know, I really do, and not to sound disgusting by saying that, or some courage, or tenacity, or whatever vocabulary word we want to use for that. Everybody else had their husband with them, or a family member, and, you know, so we go around the room talking to everybody there, and, you know, having pleasant conversations with people while doing chelation treatment. So everybody's getting IVs for different things. I'm the only person there without a PICC line. At that point, they wanted to go ahead and insert a PICC line. And they didn't want to insert the PICC line because they thought it would have caused an infection. I mean, it was just back and forth the whole time I was there. But while I was sitting there getting treated, I started getting sick. So I threw up a couple of times. No big deal. I'm a veteran Crohn survivor, so that doesn't really bother me very much. Then I had like 4 seizures after that. That was crazy. I don't remember what happened throughout the time frame I was having those seizures. I was post-ictal for a while. And Dr. Warren is now calling my poor mother, which really kind of made no sense. Back and you're like, well, what are we going to do with her? She's having seizures. I want to send her to the hospital. I'd been at the clinic for 2 days when this had occurred, and I was supposed to be returning home on an early flight the following morning. So Dr. Warren's like, look, and again, I understand this as a practitioner. In good faith consciousness, I cannot allow you to leave here like this. Why don't you go next door and go, you know, into the hospital? At the time, I had Medicaid, which is not covered all across the country. It was only able to be used in New York, so I'm freaking out. I'm like, you can't put me in the hospital. One, I have a plane to catch. The holidays are coming. I want to go home and be with my son. Especially now that you just told me I was going to die. I really want to go home and be with my son. So, yeah, he was reluctant to let me leave. I'm like, look, I can take care of myself. God bless this man. And again, this is where I always say people have gone above and beyond for care for me. He turned around and was just like, okay, I'll make you a deal. Made a lot of deals on this trip. I'll let you leave. You know, if you make sure, I can call you in about an hour or so, and I'll double check on you, make sure you're okay. Again, my hotel is across the street from this clinic, so I was right there anyhow. So I had my driver come pick me up and then take me back to my hotel. God bless, Dr. Warren calls me about an hour later. Are you okay? Yeah, no, I'm fine. Have you had any other seizures? No, I'm fine. I took extra seizure meds, took extra supplements for that, and fortunately I was all right. I ate dinner. They had a really, really great restaurant over there, actually, that I would love to go back to. This place called Mimi's. Anyway, nutrition is fine. I get excited when I find good food. So yeah, I mean, picture this. You know, you're alone in a wheelchair, having seizures, having SVT runs, and someone just told you you're going to die in like 6 months. What do? So I call my two best friends, hysterically crying, like, you know, what the hell am I going to do now? And God bless both of them for being the amazing women that they are. We called bucket list. It was like, all right, well, if this is going to happen, we're either going to fight, which we're going to do that. But at the same time, you go do whatever the hell you want. Have fun. You know, what do? You know, it's... I'll get more into that when I finish up the story, but... Man, let me tell you, what runs through your head, especially when you're... I don't want to discredit people who are not parents, but especially as a mother... It's like, this is just unacceptable. I can't have this. I'm not giving up. You know, and as a practitioner, I had read studies about, and I've treated people with cancer who have gotten better, who would have doctors that say, listen, you have 6 months left, you have a year left, you have 9 months left. And it's no surprise to me that a lot of people would die during that time frame. Because once you have something stuck in your head, you know, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in some regard. So while I knew this intellectually and as a practitioner, and also by the way I felt and what was going on in my body, at the same time, I just was not willing to accept it. So there was a lot of give and take there for me for that. So the short story of it is I was able to get on a plane the following morning. Fortunately, I didn't have any issues with altitude stuff. Had another layover. My plane lands in Philly. I'm going to bring this up for a good reason. The plane lands in Philly, and I'm waiting for my connecting flight. I work with children with neurobehavioral disorders on the spectrum, or I had previously in my career. So I'm sitting there waiting to get onto my next plane, and there's a cute little boy, and I could tell right away he had Asperger's. He was very, very smart. He knew all about the planes and, you know, different things, and he was talking to me. He was adorable. He was about 9 years old, and he was an unaccompanied minor, so I felt bad, so I'm sitting there talking with this little guy. Another gentleman comes up, and it was only the three of us on this little, that was supposed to get on this little stupid prop plane to go back to New York. They wound up grounding our flight. What do you do when you're stuck in an airport and you have very little funds, you know, appropriated for this trip, on top of the fact that you can't walk? I couldn't go get my own bags. I had no clue where the hell I was sleeping that night. And my private practice was actually having their Christmas party that evening. So I was only wanted to do was go home and go to the Christmas party at my practice, especially because I was upset because of the diagnosis I just got, and I wanted to be around my people. I made the best out of that night. And I won't go into details about that. You'll learn about that in my Lyme book. But met a complete stranger who, God bless, actually took care of me. My brother called up, who also works with a travel company, and wound up, you know, making sure that I got into a room for that evening. You know, thank God for my younger brother. He really saved me on that one. My cousin Joey lives in Pennsylvania. I was 4 hours away from him, but he would have come pick me up even. So, you know, we had a lot of people offering help. Because I had so many seizures, renting a car and trying to drive back to New York was not an option. So, I mean, I really exhausted every possible option I could have in terms of trying to get home. So, it was just not happening that night. So, whatever, I was upset, but what are you going to do? It's going to sound horrible. I went up in a bar that night and was just like, I'm just going to drink and then go to bed. You know, again, I had somebody that I met that became a friend, that I still am friends with to this day, a gentleman who kind of helped me carry my bags and get me back into a hotel. So, you know, God bless that person for doing that. So, yeah, that happened. And the following morning, you know, I went up getting to go back home. And now my family is freaking out. Like, what are we going to do? Man, let me tell you, that was sad. It was like one of the scariest things I've ever done. But you know what the funny thing was? It's like I went into this mode where it was almost like I ignored. I just had to put it out of my head. It wasn't until I got home that it was like, okay, now I can kind of deal with the emotional component to this. I was so just hell-bent on saying, okay, I have to be okay so I can get home. I have to be okay so I can get home. Then I'll figure out what I'm going to do, which is essentially what wound up happening. Clinic calls me when I get back home. Listen, you're coming back out here to get treated. They wanted me to go out there, live out there in Arizona for 3 months. Again, I live in New York, so it's pretty far away from me. They wanted someone else to come out there with me because I was too sick to take care of myself. I couldn't even cook myself breakfast if I had to at that point. I was so sick. So, yeah, it was just something that was not feasible financially or practically. Again, my child is here. I can't be away from my child. And, you know, the thought process at that point in time is if I am going to die, I'm not going to be away from my child. I want to make sure I'm with him. So, yeah, it was kind of back to the drawing board. I felt like I got kicked in the face. It was just like, now what do I do? And to be quite honest with you guys, you know, and again, this is featured in my book too. I went nuts for a little while. I was just doing all kinds of crazy things. And you could either have looked at it that it was like really manic-y behavior, and risky behavior, or you could have looked at the behavior as a symptom of dying soon. You know, what do you do? What would you do if someone told you you had 6 months left to live? You have a minor child, and you had this amazing career that you worked your butt off for, and you were so happy with your life before this happened to you, and beautiful family and friends, and you're supposed to leave them all behind and just give up? I could not accept that. It's just unacceptable. So, a lot of stuff happened in the past 3 years, but if I would have listened to Dr. Warren, who I still respect highly, mind you, I think this guy was dead on with what he said, and I fought, and I fought, and I fought. When that plane got grounded in Philly, I'm a big Rocky fan that I am, and if you guys have seen me on my videos, I've got quite a few tattoos. My cousin Angelica's fantastic, but I have a southpaw tattoo with boxing gloves hanging from it. I'm left-handed, and I've always been an avid Rocky fan. I would just look at Lyme disease like Rocky beating up the Russian. If I think that was Rocky 3, if you saw that particular movie. And, you know, I mean, there's really no way in hell that Rocky could have beat this gentleman up. Well, the guy's on steroids and stuff, and he still had that, what Rocky calls his heart and fire. You know, he was all heart and fire. So I just, that kind of became a mantra for me. I'm like, I'm going to be all heart and fire, and I'm going to, like, beat this disease up, you know, type of thing. So that was really where I was at with it. And when I landed in Philly and we got grounded there, I vowed that one day I would go back to Philadelphia and I would go run up those damn Rocky steps. Now, mind you, I was in a wheelchair at this point in time, and then someone just told me I had 6 months left to live, but I swore I would do it. I'm happy to report to you guys that last year, thankfully, between doing the Cowden protocol and some very expensive experimental Lyme treatment, which did work for me, by the way, here in New York, so I didn't have to leave and go all the way back to Arizona. And that's thanks to my girlfriend, Christine, who's a physician's assistant. So shout out to Christine for being the person that she is, being so smart. 2017, I was doing those things. I was running 5Ks, which I had never done before, mind you. So this is somebody who went from being, you know, really shot in a wheelchair to now being able to do this. My seizures started to get a lot better. Yeah, I did quite a few things. So it's very hardcore nutrition with the Cowden, and then, like I said, the experimental treatment, and keeping up with a very rigorous exercise routine. You know, so I would run like 5 miles a day, you know, on certain days. So, I mean, it was really great. I'm thankful I was able to do that. Late 2017, I got asked to come speak with some Columbia alumni, and actually lecture with Dr. Brian Fallon, who is based out of Columbia, where I have gotten my nutrition certifications from. And it was amazing. Spent the weekend in Philly, and my cousins came down to come hang out with my son and I. I went to the conference to teach the first day, and then the second day, actually, I'm sorry, this is out of sequence. The first day we got down there, we went to go look at the Liberty Bell. I'm bugging my cousins. I felt so bad for them. We have to go to the Rocky Steps. I want to go to the Rocky Steps. You know, we have to go there. So there's a video of me on my YouTube channel of me running up the Rocky Steps. So you figure 2015, December of 2015, now we're in September of 2017, I had vowed to run up these damn steps, and I did. That was one of the coolest things. And not only did I do it with, you know, with me, I did it with my son, I did it with my cousin, with, you know, with their child, my second cousin, little Julius, which was so cute. So I had my son Jaden and Julius running with us, and my cousin-in-law Jess, who's amazing. So I can't even tell you guys. It was just, it was incredible. We had an awesome weekend. So I got to teach. I got to run up the Rocky Steps. Life was grand. Unfortunately, October, November of that year, I went up relapsing again. In part because I think I went off the Cowden protocol prematurely, which now I will not make that mistake again. So January 1st, I'm going to hop back up on that. That's one of my New Year's resolutions. If you're not familiar with the Cowden protocol, please send me a message. I can get you some information on it and direct you to the appropriate party that can help you to get on that. It's fairly inexpensive compared to other Lyme treatments, but I will warn you, it's very, very, very involved. You're taking supplements, and several of them, 4 or 5 times a day, having to drink a lot of water doing it, and being on a strict diet. Strict diet's fine for me. I have no trouble with that. Me being a nutritionist, I think it's a little easier. I have the training. I'm very disciplined with that. But, yeah, I guess so today, the reason why today is a day in the Girl of a Life with Lyme disease, today's a celebration day, is really because, according to this doctor, December 17th of 2017, 6 months later, I should have been dead. So what, 15. So April of 16, I guess I should have ceased to exist. And I'm still sitting here talking to you now. Man, it's interesting to look at that. So I think like December 17th is like my second birthday now. Why not celebrate 2 birthdays a year instead of 1, right? And I'm blessed and I'm thankful that I'm still here. My son is now 10 and a half, going on 11. I don't think there's any words you can put the gratitude that I have that I'm still here. Avril Lavigne wrote a beautiful song called Head Above Water, and she also suffers from Lyme and is doing better than she had previously. And if you haven't Googled that song or watched on YouTube, please go ahead and do it. Anybody with a chronic illness should listen to this, particularly if you have Lyme. But she wrote this song, and the premise for her writing this song, she was laying on her bathroom floor. She felt like she was going to die. Her mom was holding her, and she just kept praying. You know how many moments I've had like that? Like literally laying on the bathroom floor, same thing, except I'm usually by myself. Like praying to God to help me. Or my daughter who passed away. Like, hey, if you're not too busy doing your angel business up there, can you please come help me out? And every single time something came through where I was either able to get up again or be able to do what I had to do. So I'm very spiritual, but I'm also religious. I'm a little both. But yeah, something kept me alive for that time, and it was me just being like tenacious. Like a doctor would say something to me, like what Dr. Warren had said. And again, not that he was wrong, but I refused to believe it. It was just not allowed in my thought process. So, in 2017, I also had gone back to my private practice, not to work, but to be treated. So I was doing physical therapy, I was doing acupuncture, seeing one of our chiropractors who was very privy to nutrition, so he had me on a regime. I was going to my Lyme doctor, and I was doing Cowden. So, and then plus on top of working out in PT, running every day. So I really focused hardcore last year on my health. That was my only focus besides my child was getting myself better. And thank God, yeah, like I said, I got into remission. So, this year a little different. I've had my ups and downs. I'd say this has been a fairly difficult year for me. I have been able to do a lot of cool things. I started blogging for Greg Kirk over at the TikTok Foundation again, so I could start writing. I am in the process of writing 2 books right now, in addition to occasionally seeing patients when I'm up to it. And then just doing research like I normally do. Health-wise, though, I wound up developing sarcoidosis this year, which is Lyme bacteria that causes granulomas in different parts of the body. Unfortunately, mine attacked my lungs, so my favorite thing to do, run out the window for a while. I did run a 5K with my son late this year, but it wasn't running. I walked it. It was a bubble run, so it was, parents with children with strollers, so they were not running. So that was kind of nice to be able to do that. But honestly, most of the year I was pretty much bedbound. I go out on occasion when I can, but it's hard for me. Like my son's Christmas concert just passed by. The whole time I'm standing there with oxygen on now, because I'm usually on oxygen. I could barely even stand up to walk into the damn auditorium. There's some days where I need to use a wheelchair at this point. Today, for example, December 17th, earlier today, it was just a bad day for me. I got very sick. I had a couple of seizures throughout the day, so You know, I don't have them too often anymore. So when I have one now, it's like, oh no, remember what this feels like having this like 3 or 4 times a day. This is no fun. So it was a day not to be okay. So I have to go, you know, go get myself checked out tomorrow. I have a really good holistically oriented MD that's helping me. So I guess the whole point to this is really honestly, you have to be thankful for every day, even if it's a crappy day and you're not feeling well. Like today, I was so frustrated. I had patients that I wanted to make sure I took care of, and I just could not get up. Typically I force myself and I'll start working out anyway or doing something, but it was just not happening. So I've learned to be lenient with my body and not push. And, you know, as per my naturopath, who's pretty strict with this, you know, there are days where you need to lay down. That's what you need to do. But the main thing I want to convey in this video is hope, in a big way. Because when somebody tells you, especially somebody that you respect, that you're going to die, and the practitioners that you're working with back in New York, who are like world-renowned practitioners, who are very smart, very caring, wonderful, always doing research, they didn't even know what to do anymore. It was like my crew of people that I hung out with at that time, the elite of the elite in the medical field, and in functional medicine, functional neuro, functional nutrition, were like, we don't know what to do with you. That was scary. But, you know, it's so funny. I was just like, almost like I was never really afraid of it. And this is going to sound a little morbid, but I will put this out there. We know the number one reason that people die from Lyme disease is suicide. And I'm being very transparent here. I've had several suicide attempts since I've been sick, and I'm embarrassed to admit that sometimes, and other times, it's good for me to admit this, only because, you know, other people go through it too. I could see why somebody would want to chop their head off or something having Lyme. When every single part of your body hurts in places where you didn't even think you had pain receptors, or you're flopping like a fish on dry land from having so many seizures, this is not fun. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to deal with that. But it was, for me, it was one issue compounded onto another, onto the next, into the next. And as we know, Lyme is a migratory disease, so it's almost cyclical in its fashion. You'll have one organ that's screwed up one time I go to the doctor, and then something screwed up the next time I go, and it kind of flows around that way. But the message really, like I said, to convey here is hope, because if anybody should have been dead by now from having Lyme, it's definitely me. There's no question. If you looked at my medical records, I was diagnosed with 22 different ailments that are secondary to Lyme. So, mind you, I had Crohn's disease prior to having Lyme, which I had gotten completely in remission for 10 years with just diet, nutrition, and just general self-care and things like that. Not the case with Lyme disease. So I would say, you know, Crohn's disease is preschool compared to Lyme disease. That's where I got my PhD, was with Lyme. And I'm still learning. And if I'm lucky enough, I learn something new every day. So I hope anybody out there who's suffering with Lyme, if you haven't found your magic bullet that's helped you, or if you're struggling tonight or today and you're just looking at what's going on in your life and you're frustrated, you don't know what else to do, please keep in mind, you know, my story and perseverance, and knowing that a lot of the battle is, you know, really going with a mind-body kind of type of thing. If you think that you're going to die, that's probably what's going to happen. And it's not to say that I didn't listen to Dr. Warren, nor did I, what's the word I'm looking for? Nor did I reject, so to speak, his opinion. But I really couldn't allow myself